Welcome, Scythe ladies and gentlemen, to episode 4 of the Scythe podcast. We had a different name, which was Alternate History Scythe, but we kind of got rid of that because we're changing it up in terms of the type of content we're delivering. We started with some history, then we went into some parallel learning. Now we're going to get into a little bit of gameplay to illustrate one of the parallel learning concepts between Scythe and chess. So we are coming at you with an eclectic mix of content every week, ideally. And we are going to have some guests on here. And the way we pick the content is based on concepts that we think are missing and maybe like adding some new terminology to the Scythe vocabulary. So that we think are missing from the educational and like strategy building, skill building Scythe content on YouTube, or that's the vocabulary that's used. Also, topics that we're excited about is another way we go at it. Or what is it? Topics where we think that like our perspective can add something to the mental model around Scythe. Do you have any other other pieces? Cole,
Interjections.
we've got Cole here, Bulldogcoma, for this episode with
What's up,
me.
guys? Yeah. So that's pretty much our whims and fancies. All this stuff. That's what this podcast is about, right? The random stuff we come up with about Scythe while we think about it on a daily basis. But no, really. We've primed you guys with the history, and we went into some parallel learning, and now we're getting into the meat. We're getting into gameplay, the real stuff that a real 1200 ELO player, is here to instill some wisdom in you guys. So, if anyone wants to 1v1 me, let's do it. But no, what we're really here for is to learn from someone much better, and that's Josh, my co-conspirator here, who is 14 to 1500 ELO consistently, and he's really good at this game. He has brought me into the fold quite energetically, and we're lucky to have him as a bit of a sensei, along with some of the other whales
Yeah, we
in the
might get
Scythe
some real
community. So with that,
grandmasters in here. Yeah, we might get some real grandmasters in here. But something that I've always wanted to show is like the perspective of a newer player, or maybe like a player with less mastery,
that's
contrasted with
me.
like a grandmaster, which is not me, but we'll probably get that in there, and see like where the depth of thinking differs. So we're gonna get to do a little bit of that today. And sometimes if you see me on cast with like Fomov or Joy Division, I try to bring that out with some of my questions as we're casting. So or Nevik, let's say me and Nevik. So we're gonna get into a little bit of that today. And then let's see, what else was I saying? Lost my train of thought. Um, that's okay. So we're gonna start. So for the format today, we're gonna both give a read on this matchup from the replay, and then we're gonna go through some gameplay that illustrates the concept of from chess, and that's super important in Scythe is controlling the center of the board, which is also like having priority, and or I guess tempo in chess in a way. So that's something I want to kind of talk about and look at, which is a piece of vocabulary that I'd like to add to the Scythe dictionary in terms of competitive gameplay. And so we'll start there, and then we're going to go through kind of turn by turn and do some commentary, some analysis on like what's going on and why these decisions are being made. So let me switch this up, and we'll get into So now we can see the draw. So this was a game that I played a couple weeks ago. And I drew Rusviet Agricultural, and the objectives that I drew were machine over muscle and achieve tactical mastery. And I was facing up against Crimea Engineering. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have Cole give his read on the matchup. So for those players that are 13, 14, 1500 ELO, like 1v1, let's say you want to like improve, one of the biggest things I found, sorry, Let me get something going here. One of the biggest things I found is being able to read the matchup when you draw, because there's 48 combos, and then you each get one of those. So there's many matchups between those. There are some concepts that can simplify it, so you don't need to know all that stuff. Like faction versus faction, there's kind of a matchup dynamic too. And there's another piece of vocabulary I want to add to the Scythe dictionary, which is faction ability. And I'll talk about that some more in another video. So I think what I want to do is a video going over the concept of faction ability, and another video coming up for you guys eventually, another video talking about priority or tempo. And Cole can definitely help me with both of those, especially tempo, because he's
Hope so.
got a lot of experience in chess. So what I'm going to do is have Cole give his read in the matchup, very important skill for competitive Scythe, and then I'll give my read in the matchup, and then we'll jump in and go through some gameplay. All right, Cole, take it away.
All right, cool. So the first thing I'm looking at here are the objectives and, of course, which mats we have. So we have Rusviet Agricultural and Crimea Engineering, which for Rusviet and Crimea, these are pretty slow boards, both of them, with, I would say, Crimea Engineering being a little bit slower. So you have achieve tactical mastery and machine over muscle. First, you need to think about, okay, which objective am I going for here? Because with tactical mastery, by the time you fight Crimea, chances are they're going to have a lot of power, because that's just Crimea, and they're also going to try and steal your combat cards with Scythe by the time they're out, with Scout by the time they're out of their base. So I'd probably go for machine over muscle here, which is a little crappy, because you have to not produce as many workers like Rusviet likes to do at the beginning. Or you could replace your objective with the Power Star, essentially, because you have Russ Ag, right? And it is, what is it? The food is under the power, so you want the food because you're agricultural. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're going to enlist, you could get the Power Star to replace one of those objectives, which is what I might go for, honestly, just personally.
To replace it, okay. That is, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to be very passive in the game if you go about it that way. So just give me, like, percentage-wise, like 70-30, 60-40, 50-50. Like, who's favored and what's the percentages for this?
I would say 60-40 on Rusviet.
Rusviet's
from everything I've seen. Yes.
Okay.
That's my take on it.
Okay. All right, so now let's give a little bit of contrast for someone who has played a lot of 1v1 matchups versus like 1,500 players and lost. Crimea versus Agricultural. And what I'm going to say, in contrast to Cole's, is that Rusviet Agricultural is pretty much doomed in this matchup. It's like 70-30. And
really?
Yeah, it's actually a terrible matchup for Rusviet Agricultural. On top of that, achieve tactical mastery, that's never happening versus Scout. That you're never gonna be doing that. So
I got that right.
Yeah, you were right there. Crimea Engineering is a low power combo. Rusviet Agricultural is a high power combo. Engineering is gonna be efficient with the trade to deploy. So efficiency, so how many turns it takes to get your 3 bottom row actions, basically. Worker, so in this case it's going to be worker, deploy, enlist. They're efficient, but Rusviet, the agricultural board, has a whole extra 4 turns required to do their bottom rows. So I mean, neither board's extremely efficient because there's no produce over enlist or deploy, but both of them are going to have to take the turns to do their produces. But you need like 3 or 4 extra turns to go out of your way just to do the bolster enlist with Rusviet Agricultural. So you're going to be extremely slow. Crimea Engineering is a little slow to build up. Maybe by like turn 8, they have 2 mechs, Riverwalk and Speed, and they can leave their base. And then they just explode in how quick they are to complete the game after a little bit of a slow start. So they're extremely fast combo with a little bit of a slow start. Rusviet Agricultural is very slow. Like I said, there's like 3 or 4 extra turns coming in if you're doing your enlist star. There's another way to play it where you move a lot and you get your upgrade star instead of enlist star. Maybe get like one enlist. That would be a quicker and more active way to play this combo. That's maybe better. But what happens with Crimea versus Rusviet? So when Crimea has a fast board versus Rusviet in 1v1, Cole, is Crimea will get into Rusviet's base as quickly as possible, and they can enter, to the oil from the oil tunnel, and then from there, if they get through the base, they can walk across into that food village that, that grain tile that Rusviet used to enlist off. So they can literally take over all of Rusviet's base. They can block the jumping to the factory. So basically, and they'll take as many fights as possible. They'll position as many mechs within range of like attacking subsequently to Rusviet. So you're going to have no combat cards. One, you're going to have to group all your stuff together. They're going to destroy your economy. They'll have control of like the center of the board completely. They'll be in your base. So, and that's accentuated when you have a fast Crimea and a slow Rusviet. Rusviet Agricultural is, I believe, the worst Rusviet combination, whereas Crimea Engineering's maybe like the third best for this scenario. So that's why I say 70-30. It's really bad, but it gets way worse when you have to do machine over muscle, because achieve tactical mastery is never happening. Machine over muscle is going to be awkward and limit your produces. And one area where you had strength was building up quickly is now gets hurt. So this was a horrible draw for me. So Cole, what do you think? That's my read. It's a little bit different, but you had the tactical mastery piece, right? But if you were to go try and do the power star and go super slow, they would just they could probably just dive you unless you're super grouped up and you have to stall, but you're going to keep getting attacked. I don't think you'll ever be able to get the power star because you can't let them win the battle. So you're spending power and and combat cards when they keep attacking you, because they're going to be ready to end so much quicker. So that's why the power star is actually not going to, I don't think that would actually work well.
Okay, so it's not really feasible for this matchup. Yeah, you see, and I've always had trouble just personally with Crimea Engineering, positioning myself in such a way as to end it explosively like you're talking about. But it's like thinking about getting over into Rusviet's oil tunnel and just blasting off from there is really interesting. So I'm thinking where this game is going to go then, since obviously we're talking about controlling the center of the board, is Russ can get there faster in this case, almost no matter what. That's at least one advantage. And machine over muscle is going to accelerate the need to do that.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that is going to confer some advantage.
Yep. All right, well, let's jump in. So the listeners of this podcast that are used to just listening while they're doing chores and stuff, now we've added the replay review element. So like getting in front of the screen and stuff is what we'd recommend on this. So we keep you on your toes. But that might not be always how we do the content, based on what we think is going to be most beneficial and most interesting for the audience. So all right, so let's jump in. Cole, thank you for that analysis, and you can see kind of the difference across knowledge levels, I would say. All right, so I'm gonna play it, and let's.
It's gonna be hard.
There's there's a recording of me saying this is gonna be difficult. Let me mute this video. Here we go. Okay, because when I read this, I was like, all right, there's problems. There's a lot of problems here. The machine over muscle actually kind of, since I knew I had to do it, yeah. So the other player comments, this is a terrible matchup for you, basically, at the beginning.
And I'm assuming you're playing someone good.
They're actually not. They're like maybe like 1280, 1300.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think they're just going with the standard opening. But yeah, they think it's a bad matchup for me, but they don't know that I have objectives that make it really bad. So what I'm doing here is setting up for machine over muscle with my first couple moves. They're going with the standard opening, like turn 8, they're like ready to explode. If they can get good encounters, they can do only one produce is like the optimal way to play Crimea Engineering. So, and that's awkward there. Good thing I was awake, because I stopped and didn't do the worker produce, because I'd go to 4 and I wouldn't be able to do machine over muscle. I'd be in a ton of trouble.
This is why we need the back button for this game, which the developers are thankfully working on, because I've done that too many times to
You
count.
just lose a game off of a small mistake. It's really rough.
Yeah,
What
one
happens to me?
misclick.
Yeah, what happens to me a lot is I will move. I'll click move, but I won't have the mechs I expect to have. I mean, this happens to
Yeah,
everyone.
ooh,
That is
huge with Russ
brutal.
especially. Like
Yeah,
before I
Russ.
get speed, I'm like, I'm gonna get the second encounter. Oh shit, I can only walk to the village tile, and then
Yeah,
you move, and it's just wasted.
yeah, you waste a whole turn. I mean, I think it happens the worst with Rusviet. And especially, I know that I have trouble doing that, especially under pressure versus a good player, or just like this matchup, I'm under so much pressure. Um, I know that I have trouble with the mech thing, so that's something I watch out for, especially if I go factory mech first with Rusviet, because that's when I always end up in that situation. I'm setting my mechs down in the non-standard way. So that's something I have to pay attention to in this game. So they just picked up, yeah, a really nice encounter, which allows them to move straight into their first enlist. So that was like optimal for them. Um, so basically, what I know this game is like, I can play around controlling the center of the board, and what that's going to do for me is buy me way more turns, because I need way more turns than they do in this game because I have the agricultural board. Like I said, if I'm doing the enlist, that's like 3 or 4 additional turns on top of what they're going to require with their board, which is also terrible. um, so I'm just moving to the factory here, get machine over muscle, and I pick up a really good factory card, right? Cole, do you want to talk about why that's such a good factory card?
Yeah, definitely. In this case, because you're already lagging behind, I would say, on your mechs, right? Or you're lagging behind not only on your mechs, you don't have your speed mech yet, but on your workers. You haven't been able to produce enough workers to get the metal that you need to create more mechs. So in this case, you would need to spend at least 1 or 2 extra turns, in my view, getting just your speed mech and doing what you need to do, which is get that center of the board control and move around as quickly as possible before Crimea can explode out of their base. And it gives you that power too right away, since you said Crimea is a low power combo. Just even getting that 1 extra power every time you do it, it does start to add up after a while.
Yeah, no, definitely. Early game having those extra powers is really important, but this solves a lot of issues for me. So I took a risk, I was sort of forcing the machine over muscle, but I did get that really good draw of the 3 picks. I was hoping for a deploy factory card. Also, my deploy action on the agricultural board is just terrible. You get paid nothing and you have to trade into it. So, basically replacing that with a super action is much better. And then it gives me the, deploy into a triple move, or like into the factory move, which means I can spend more time positioning. I get more moves to get my positioning on the center of the board right. So super happy with this, and I'm like, all right, I might be able to do this. And yeah, it fixes my movement issues that I will have, where I don't have the proper mechs because I had to start with machine over muscle and I started with township. So let's play it again. Let's see here. So yeah, I mean, it's nice. Now I can just be producing more workers and get
Yeah, go for
combo.
their encounter. Always grab that encounter from Crimea if you can.
Yeah. I mean, I saw they didn't have Riverwalk yet, so I'm like, okay, I have time to do this. See what I did. Okay, yeah. So that was a really nice encounter that I got there.
Always a nice encounter.
Anytime you can pay 3 pop for 5 resources, that's pretty wild. Earlier
Yeah,
in the game, the
do it every
better, I
time.
would say. But yeah, so I'm getting that my first encounter. That's insane, also. So I've had 2 strokes of luck to help with things. Their first encounter was great too. So now they have Riverwalk, so I know there are some like pretty tight timings that I have to play around here. And I believe that my combat cards, the video actually overwrites it, but this is something to keep in mind. I'll bring it up again. Is my combat cards were like 2/2s this game. So now they have the ability to attack me. I need to move away. Let's see what I'm doing here. I know that I can't let them control the center of the board. Okay. But I do have a little time. Okay. So
And do you want to talk about why you went for that pop there after you had just spent it all on your resources?
let me see here. I think that was just a batting. Oh yeah. So I probably went for the pop. What do I have? 3 workers. Okay. So yeah. So this is like that treehouse number 31, the treehouse encounter. It's kind of like the worst encounter in the game. So
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I think that's what people refer to it as, is the treehouse encounter. So basically, I mean, taking 2 wood's doing nothing for me. It costs 4 to even do a building. So since I know that I'm going to be moving around and positioning a lot this game, I want to have some extra pop if I have no better options. So that way, at least I can trade pop for some nice encounter options. So
There you go.
but basically, taking this encounter wasn't really my objective. My main objective was to get out of Crimea's range for now. I do have a couple moves to get back into position, though. So, but they were about to attack me if I didn't move to somewhere safe.
Definitely.
Okay, so they get their second enlist. And, now they're in position to attack me on my oil tunnel. So I'm able to pick up a couple more combat cards because I got that food from that encounter, which I would never have food if I wasn't out on the board taking these risks, and that first enlist is super important. Because I need combat cards to posture in the center of the board so they don't attack me. I need combat cards because I have People's Army, which is completely countered by Scout, which isn't out yet, luckily. But I have a small window where I have presence on the board if I'm out in the center right now. Meaning, like, since I have the 4 combat cards, I can use the People's Army advantage in a couple turns once I deploy it. So, like, I could deploy it now. And we'll see what I end up doing here. But there were a lot of like slim margins I had to play around. Okay, so moving out to the center of the board, Crimea can move next turn with the triple move to the factory if they want. I still believe my combat cards are like a 3 and 2 2s, maybe something else. They're not good.
It's a bit of a bluff.
So yeah, I take out 3 mechs, and that was like that entire turn was spent. All I did was move, no bottom rows. Like, so I'm sacrificing turns to control the center of the board now, but it pays off later on by a lot of extra turns for me. So taking that type of, like, that's not a decision that you have to have some foresight on the matchup to be taking, like, that move I just did, right? That's not a normal move you would take.
No, these are the kind of things that really separate, I think, top tier from middling tier players. Is that something, like, personally I wouldn't have thought about? I'd be like, oh, I need 4 workers. I need to work towards another enlist. Right. So having the forethought to say, okay, this is what the matchup demands of me is incredibly important.
Yeah, no, definitely. So right here he's got Scout out. So now I'm I think this is the opening where if they attack me, they're taking one of my combat cards. It's 3 versus 3. So, like, having that extra power really helps me because I'm up 1 power. But it's going to be a 3 versus 3 on the factory, and my cards are bad, and their cards are probably good. I'm not sure how many they've cycled at this point, but they're basically like sorting them so they get higher cards. So,
oh, that's something you need to think about.
Yeah, with Crimea. So when they took this move here, when they did their upgrade, what are they doing here? Oh no, let's see. Yeah, they're doing their upgrade. Oh, okay. So one thing to note is they didn't have an upgrade before that. Hold on. Oh, I can't adjust it, but they didn't have an upgrade. So that means that actually right here they were able to attack me with 2. So it was going to be, they were going to take a combat card. I would have 3, they have 3. They play 2 combat cards and I'm up 1 power. So I had a very slim margin of advantage. So they went here to get their upgrade. So now they have triple move and can attack me next turn. So that may not have been the turn that they needed to go. Um, so, all right, so now they've got their triple move. They're like basically full power with triple move and scout in range of the factory. So, luckily I have this factory card, which again makes like a huge difference. Not only do I get people's army, but I also get to reposition. So, I mean, this is a huge turn. I think that was, I believe, yeah. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically blocking them from even accessing the fight on the factory. So I think that was their opening. They would have had to go with scout and with 2 and attack me down 1 power, which is not, they don't know my combat cards are terrible, but that was their one opening, and now they're blocked. I think that from here I can just keep repositioning. So they decided to, which I may have done in my position. I might have gone for the upgrade and thought I could wait a turn, but like if you think about it, like all right, they're doing their people's army and blocking me next turn, or they have the potential to. So here I'm like, when they move their character out to that encounter, I'm like, I think I won this game basically, because when you block the factory and then they forfeit attacking it and move out like that with their character, you know that you own the center of the board kind of for the rest of the game. They're not getting a factory card, right? Like he only has a double move with that character, and now he's 3 steps from the factory. So, and in range of 2 encounters. So basically he's just gonna pick up a couple encounters, which is fine. That doesn't matter to me. Like my win condition was controlling the center of the board.
Right, and it's interesting that they decided to play it like this instead of positioning in a way where, they could have grouped up and threatened you enough on the factory or hemmed you in with some workers or something like that. And it's really thinking about how your win condition kind of depends on controlling the center of the board in this way. And it's that backwards act of thinking of like, okay, why is the other guy doing exactly what they're doing? That I think is another action that really separates the brains from the brawn in this game.
Maybe, yeah. I would say whenever the opponent takes a move, you should ask yourself, why did they do that move? Why did they do each of those pieces of that move? A move can be like in chess, it's like it's one thing, and then it opens up a lot of angles and shapes and like attacks and stuff like that. So you have to look at that. But with Scythe, it's like they did a triple move. They dropped workers on all of these places. Like, why did they do it this way? Why did they drop the workers this way? Why did they finish why did they end the mechs here? Why did they take this encounter? Like, there's so much to think about of why they did that move. And what I think here is he conceded the factory and he wants to pick up some resources to finish bottom row actions. But even so, like, I know you can see. So what I wanted to show here and why I paused it is you can see my combat cards. I think maybe a 2 got stolen, but I have two 3s and a 2. So if they had pushed in to this, when I block them, they're not moving through that mech, which is why I did it. I said you can have a combat, but you're not moving through this mech, which means that it'll be 2 extra turns before you can even attack the factory on top of this first move. So that's why you always have to block with a mech. They can't move through it. So I mean, this battle didn't matter so much because now I have 2 more turns before they can move. And I think that they just wanted some more combat cards. And I don't mind that because I just bought myself 2 turns and if I have the ability to enlist, I can recover all the stuff I just spent. Would I end up playing a 3 and a 1? Yeah, so like I didn't spend much. But now they're only in range of the factory with 1 mech as well. So it's better for me to win that, I guess. So okay, so I finished my workers, which is like I just bought myself another turn, I think. That I shouldn't have. So like the tempo is on my side, right? I'm buying myself free turns. Like in chess, if you put them in check, they have to respond, which means that they're doing something reactive and they're not developing their board, whereas you get a free move to develop your board further. So that's what's happening is I had to buy myself like 5 turns this game. But I mean, I don't think I could have won this without that factory card. That's the most critical thing is I got a good factory card, and you need to know when you're at a 30-70 so you take risks. You're like, all right, I'm losing this on paper 70% of the time. If this player's
Yeah, and what
competent, so I'm gonna take a risk on the encounter instead of getting the trade for the food I need to move. This is just an example. I'll hope I can get it because I need to speed up.
Well, and that's really interesting. If you just think about chance in general, you just think about mathematical chance and how, you don't have that big of a chance of getting such a shitty deal where you're getting these objectives and the ag board.
Yep.
But in a game like that, like independently, you don't really have odds of getting better encounters, but overall, like over the long run of everything, you're going to be even the more risks you take if you have some bad luck at the beginning, right? So it's like really taking those chances. The math is on your side that like that's the best thing you can possibly do.
Yep. And I found that you actually end up getting. I find that when I get a really bad draw with a really bad objective, that I'll end up getting really nice encounters or a really nice factory
Exactly.
card
Yeah.
because
Yep.
it is like the regression to the mean of like you're gonna get a mediocre draw across the full game,
Hey,
right? So
regression to the that's the concept I was looking for. Thank you for filling that in.
hopefully, yeah. So okay, so let's see what happened here. I bought myself a turn where I can just like go get a huge produce off, so I can just finish in lists and I can do them straight in a row. So I still have them completely blocked. So like all they did was take an encounter, I don't care, and recover to this like more mechs to the center of the board to attack me. But I bought myself the turn to be doing enlists, which they're a low power combo, right? So I'm gonna have so much power and money. They're also a low money combo. I have so much power and money. So if you look at this, I have 0 coin right now. So I was cutting this like there were some very slim margins I was playing around this game. Like, every time I put that mech down, I'm paying 2 money. So I've done that 3 times this game. So I lost 6 money off of that. So, you know, there's no mechs left. Yeah, so I didn't choose the coin enlist because like basically all the mechs are out. But I want to keep. So since I get 3 money off the enlist, that saves me on my money ability. And then I think I pick up
Pop.
combat cards. I think I got some combat cards. Yeah, it
No,
looks
you
like.
picked up pop.
Oh, I picked up pop. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was in a safe enough position that I could kind of choose here. Like even if they do win that first battle against me, that's fine. Like I've got the point score probably, or I could have it easily with a move to spread. They still can't access the factory. So I'm just literally just sitting there, super fortified if they can actually get there. But let's see here. So I think I've got all the food now. So that is perfect here because I have all the food I need to finish the game. I can just do that at my will. 100% protected because they'd have to go, like, they don't have the movement to even reach me, but they'd have to go through a worker to get to where all of that. So that's my most protected spot on the board. So this lets me pick up a recruit. So I could skip a turn, basically.
Yeah, and that's where you said getting that pop early, like just paying that $2 for the pop instead of dismissing or something comes in handy for stuff like this. Even if you got it on the enlist, like if you would have gotten that earlier, it would have come in handy.
Yeah, I did pay 2 pop to speed up a turn right there, which was I was happy-ish with that. The game was already in my pocket, so it's like there's no amount of extra turns that's gonna win this for them really. But I'm like, all right, that makes it easier too. Um, so let's see. Yeah, I mean, it was either that or the wood, and it's like the wood. I already had a factory card, so I can't trade that wood for anything. So the wood is kind of useless. Um, but paying two money for that pop, I mean, I cut my coin really close. You saw I was at 0, so it's like I had to really manage the coin also.
Yeah, that's what I thought is, because you could have just dismissed that outright, and I think maybe a lot of people would have in your situation.
Oh yeah, just not taking it. Okay, yeah. You just have to plan out the coins and stuff. I knew that since I had extra turns, I had the ability to get my list off action off, which gets me like enough coin, and then the bonus will get me 2 more if I really need it. So I
Right.
had enough comfort in certain areas that I could play around. Um, let's see something here. So okay, so what happened there? I I was just like, what? They attacked me. I believe they attacked me and didn't play enough, and I was like, well, I can
Yeah,
just.
they didn't play anything really.
What did they do? Let's see here. So I mean, this game looks really comfortable, but actually it was like a complete shift of what should have been happening. Oh yeah, so they attacked me and I can max them, which makes no sense. And then what do? They just like I think they just conceded. They were just like, this is over. Um so then I finished the game here. So one thing that I want to talk about with controlling the center of the board is with that 70-30 draw. Let me see here, close up. Okay, so with that 70-30 draw, what was gonna happen if I let the game play out normally with how I would draw the Rusviet and try to stall is that they would have 70% chance to win even if I didn't make mistakes, kind of. So basically, what was gonna happen in like 9 turns is I was gonna have only very bad options to try to play the game. Instead, what I did with that concept of controlling the center of the board is like I took priority over the board. Like you control the center of the board, you have that power, you have the priority over power, you have the priority over points if they try to end with the spread advantage. You have the priority over encounters if you want the encounters, and you have just the priority over positioning and movement. So, and that's something we talked about in that last podcast. Um, so the power one is the most interesting one, I think, is that if they risk it and lowball you on the combat to move closer into the center of the board or leave their base, then they're penalized by 2 turns. And with Rusviet, you can move every turn, so that's a huge advantage there.
Mhm.
So they can't risk that. They're forced to play high. So you can save a ton of power and then just counterattack. That's one thing. But the psychological dynamics are really complicated, and they basically are put between two uncomfortable options. And I was supposed to be in that positioning in that game, having 2 bad options, basically 2 or 3 bad options of what I'm going to do. And instead, I flipped it on its head with the controlling the center of the board, and they were put between 2 uncomfortable options. So like 2 not great options instead of like 2 bad options. So if you saw the one turn they had an actual opening to hit the factory, they were gonna have to take 2 mechs. They had scout. They probably had good combat cards. They were down 1 power. So that was their only opening to actually get into this game and probably win the game. And they didn't take it because that's not a good that's not a good option. That's kind of uncomfortable. It's kind of an uncomfortable option. And if they lose, they're sent all the way back to their base, whereas I can return to the factory in 1 movement next turn. So, and counterattack them. So if they win, they're getting
Yeah,
counterattacked
that's a
too.
big risk.
They needed that factory card though. They really did. So it was an uncomfortable option, and what they did is they were like, let's hope I get in a turn once I'm more comfortable because I'm getting the triple move scout to the factory attack with this upgrade. Let's hope that there's still a clear path for me to attack because I will have a much bigger advantage. And they went for that, and I put out people's army and blocked them. So all I needed to do was block them at that point, honestly. I didn't even need people's army, but that was perfect for me because it advanced my bottom row actions with the deploy, and then I got positioned like optimally. So the game was basically over there. And that's why they just went off to take encounters because they were like, let's see if hopefully I can get back in this somehow, but they
Well,
conceded it.
yeah, and I think this principle, works all the time. I think about the last game I had. I just want to bring it up. I was Rusviet Militant, and I'd never played Rusviet Militant before. It was kind of weird. And Sax was in the game and moving fast, obviously going for the factory. So I just chose the mech. I forget what it's called that allows you to move township. I chose
Yeah.
township first because I had to move to deploy it. So I brought my character to the village, and then I deployed township right there, and then I went to the factory next turn, and right before Sax was able to attack me on the factory, I was able to move, get the township mech there, and then deploy People's Army right on top of it. And you think I don't have speed, I don't have Riverwalk, I have no movement, but now I'm sitting on the factory with 3 combat cards. In the militant board, and this was only on turn 4 or 5, and I mean I held that the entire game, and it was a wash. It was like I got like 80 points versus 45 or something like that at the end. Felt quite good about it. So it really does play out again and again. And obviously, it's a lot easier with Rusviet to pull off, but you can do it with Saxony too. They can move to the factory pretty fast. And I mean, I,
Yeah.
I see people get to the factory first with Albion, and have a chance to win
Yeah.
the game.
It's pretty open.
Yeah.
I would say
So
that's faction. So faction ability is like a coin I want to sort of term I want to coin for when you make a decision in the game based on your unique faction advantage and faction ability. So like you use your faction ability to strengthen and take like opportunistic kind of advantage available to you, right? So like something that Fomov was talking about last night when we were doing a cast was Saxony, and this was so Saxony in the like mid game basically wants to move every turn. That's how they can capitalize on like their best star options, and that's like their best and highest use. Finishing one bottom row action or just like building towards that in the mid game is not that productive for them, especially
nope.
because they a lot of times will sacrifice an economy because they have the double encounter or sorry the double objective that's doable, and then they have the and as many combats as possible. So they needed that factory card from you, but you basically just denied it by having the military advantage. And also, like when they're moving across the board to get there, they have to sacrifice one of their mechs if they have a triple move to set them up for the 2 to attack with. So
Yes.
it's pretty high
On that
stakes.
metal adjacent metal tile. Exactly.
Yeah, and also it's so faction ability is like, look, it's gonna take them with if you deny the factory card, they can't get back to that. How many moves back to the factory for them? And they just move. So wait one turn, then they move. That doesn't get them all the way back to the factory. They can't if they got sent home from their base, right? So they can't get back. You lose, you come back next turn. So you have the ability to lowball them. You have so many psychological advantages in that battle and how that plays out. So like even before the battle, people should be thinking about that. So then they
Yeah,
get discouraged. Like
definitely.
what happened with Crimea there is my faction ability. I was playing around my faction ability. I can return if I need to. But the reason I was even there stalling them and putting them in deciding between 2 uncomfortable things, and they took the more comfortable choice, which lost them the game. They had to risk it there. They didn't. You have to have the
They did.
foresight to see that you need
Yep.
to risk it. That was their one opening. But the reason that I was in the position that made them choose between 2 uncomfortable things instead of where it should have been, where I'm choosing between 2 bad decisions, is because I played around my faction ability and controlling the center of the
Yeah.
board. So that's a huge concept for Crimea versus Rusviet 1v1 that I would say can shift the power dynamic 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is just another way to play around the weaker combos with Rusviet. I mean, it just makes it goes to show it's such a strong faction no matter what you do, um,
Yeah, the
which is why
ability to
it's
move every turn,
yeah,
even without a
yeah,
factory
of course.
card. Yeah,
And having a mech like Township,
yeah,
even on top of that, it's like Recipe. It's just built to control the factory one way or another, and it's good to do that like on the militant board or on the ag board, where the traditional options of hopping the river and going and get your food isn't necessarily viable when you're playing against quicker combos. So
yeah.
yeah,
That's a good way to look
yeah,
at
it's
it.
very yep.
Okay, well let's we're gonna wrap it up for today. We're gonna have some more content coming at you. Hopefully soon. Hopefully this week another episode. And it might have a video aspect. We're still deciding on which content we want to do. I've got like a content list of everything I want to share with the community. So um, we'll put this one up hopefully today. And I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you for joining me, Cole, and hopefully maybe I'll see you around some of the ranked matches today. Get a little play in.
Let's do it, man. Sounds good. Bulldogcoma 1v1, everybody. Come in and kick my ass.
All right, all
All
right.
right,
Thank
see you
you.
guys. Thank